It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Karey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors.
Good Sunday morning to you. This is Karey Brown, broker owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. Today I am here with Dusty Nichols. He is the director at Shawnee County Emergency Management. Good morning, Dusty.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. So we're going to be talking about preparedness. This is the month, apparently, to make everyone aware. And Dusty, I would equate you to the local FEMA.
Kind of. Yeah, we are. Well, first off, it is National Preparedness Month, September's, and so we want to encourage everybody to make a plan, build a kit, and be informed. So now that I got that part out of the way, we'll get a little bit more in depth on what that actually means. But yeah, a lot of people see us as the local FEMA office, I guess, but we are not FEMA. We are the local emergency managers. So we are employees of Shawnee County government. I have counterparts at the city level. So there's a Topeka City Emergency Management Coordinator, and then there's, of course, the state, and then there's the feds. So FEMA is definitely the federal version of that. But we get more detailed, specific to our community, and we help our community in identifying risks and being prepared.
So we're watching what's going on with Harvey.
Uh-huh.
And obviously, there's a lot of people that are underinsured. We were just talking about this.
Yeah, it was an interesting article I was reading. They were talking about 25,000 fewer people were insured in the Houston and that county area than they were in 2012. I'm trying to figure out the reasons for that. The interesting part to me was that the article I was reading was almost blaming FEMA for not doing something about it, which was very
How would they know?
odd to me. Yeah. And I think that what the article was actually trying to relate to was not letting property owners know that was a real threat of flooding or hurricane or in that area.
You live next to the ocean?
This is the part that confused me as well. Yeah. I would think those people
There's
understand.
Your sign.
Yep. I mean, we live here in Tornado Alley,
right.
And what most people don't understand even here is that the number one risk to their homes and their lives is actually flooding, not a tornado. But it's maybe that kind of attitude that maybe there is a little bit of blame to put on emergency management, local office, or even state. Or I'm not from there, so I don't know what's going on there. But I can tell you, we run into the same kind of thing here, trying to get people prepared and try to offer incentives through through the planning office so they can get lower insurance rates and stuff like that if they're prepared. And I know the insurance companies do the same thing. If you have a smoke alarm or smoke detectors or a house alarm, your rates are going to drop because it makes it that much more resilient. Same concepts here for emergency management at a county level. We do we build what we call a THIRA, which is a threat hazard identification risk assessment, and they do the same thing in these other areas. So they know what the risks are, and what that THIRA does is it identifies those risks, prioritizes them, and then we start attacking those risks the best we can. If we can't get rid of it, then we mitigate it, and that means lessen the effects of it. So, and I'm sure that's what they did there. But it kind of builds a callus. If once you live there for a while, we live in Tornado Alley. I sound those tornado sirens, and what do people do here in Topeka?
They stand outside and they watch.
Go outside. It's the same concept. So that, to me, is what's going on in that area right now. And part of the reason maybe people got rid of their flood insurance because they, the Chicken Little syndrome, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, in the end, Chicken Little was right. So
right.
We need to kind of keep those things in mind.
And don't go outside and watch for tornadoes. My husband does the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just... those things can bounce at any given point in time.
Well, not only that, in the past, we've been accused of overwarning. In other words, if I get a National Weather Service puts out an alert or a warning for all of Shawnee County, but this tornado is only in Auburn, let's say, right, in that area. So I sound the sirens the entire county wide. Everybody runs out and they see blue skies, except for the people of Auburn who obviously know that there's something going on in their area. But I have no rain or anything up in Rossville or, northeast part of the county. So that's going to give kind of an overwarning thing. So when I sound the sirens in an event, people know to take cover. They say, it's somewhere else. We're doing some stuff to fix that, at least the warning part of it. I'm trying to get word out to everybody, and I'm glad I have you asked me on so I could at least get to your audience this, and please spread the word. If we sound those tornado sirens, we have now the ability, between the National Weather Service, our media partners within the radio and TV, and our storm spotters, storm chasers, that we can almost, I won't say pinpoint, but we can designate a specific area versus the whole entire county under a tornado warning. So if I have a tornado in Auburn, I'm only going to sound those sirens in Auburn. I can sound them individually now. So if you hear a siren, any siren, that means take cover, not run outside. It's not the YouTube warning. It is the tornado warning.
Yeah.
So if you hear a siren, please take cover.
So let's talk about the things that people should be doing, because, anytime you hear there's going to be storms or anything like that, people go in, they wipe out the grocery store.
Yeah.
So what should they be prepared for whenever bad weather happens?
Well, like we said, knowing what your risks are, what are you preparing for is the key. We're not going to prepare for hurricanes necessarily here in Kansas unless you're a first responder and you need prepared to go help, that kind of thing. So identifying those risks that you're going to need to be prepared for or mitigate. So we know we're going to have the tornado risk. We know we're going to have the flood and lightning and thunderstorms, and that's kind of our main natural disaster kind of risk. So if you think of the worst case scenario, that's kind of how to prepare. And there's been the zombie preparedness thing over the past few years, and it's if you could prepare for a zombie, you'd be prepared for anything. Cheesy. It caught your attention, so that's good. That was something different than when they weren't doing that. So what the message is really the same. If you can prepare for the worst case scenario, then you'd be prepared for anything less. And so survival items like food and water and first aid and knowing how to do that. The training is also part of that preparedness. Do you know CPR? Do you know how to use the first aid equipment? Those are really solid things that you can do individually to help prepare yourself. And then, battery powered flashlights or having additional batteries, but you have the crank flashlights now. Some of those are out there pretty cheap or inexpensive. Again, something to signal for help. Anything that you're going to need, whether it's a phone, and you can't count on your phones working in those kind of situations because the lines will be flooded or potentially towers are down. So think about backup systems. You got to get some creative thought going in here, but having that communication plan with your family too, because and some of the things that people don't think about specifically, your kids come home from school. If it's a bad weather day, and you typically know when these bad weather days are, especially if you live in Kansas, when there's a weather day, So kids come home from school, and usually they come home, and the first thing they do is get on a computer. They'll get on a gaming system platform or whatever, put headphones in, MP3s. They are not paying attention to local weather. They're not paying attention to local news. So how do they get the warning? Do you have a weather system? Do you have a weather radio? Do you have apps on their phones, whatever, to let them know? And do they know what to do? It's one thing to assume that they know what to do, but to actually, do they really know? So having that conversation with your family, having that conversation with your kids, satellite radio, and those kinds of things have kind of really reduced our awareness of our local community in some aspects. So having a way to get that warning and then knowing when to take shelter is key as well.
Something else to think about, a lot of us have cable, and that's usually the first thing to go out once you start getting rain as far as Dish is concerned, because
Sure.
We've got Dish, DirecTV. As soon as it started raining, we didn't have TV.
Yeah, that cloud covered.
Yeah,
ruins that
so definitely having a NOAA weather radio is that's how we know.
That's the primary method one of the primary methods we encourage people to have, but we always encourage people to have a backup system if you lose power. So you can't count on those phones. So, and knowing when to act is key as well. So just to get the warning isn't enough. Knowing what to do is really the primary part.
So you have, I've got a brochure here in front of me. Another thing that they've got on there is a dust mask to help filter contaminants and plastic sheeting, duct tape, things along those lines.
Sure,
Moisten towelettes.
Some of that is for a shelter in place because we do have other events. I talk primarily about natural disaster because that's the more likely scenario that we could have to deal with here. But there are the hazardous materials. If you live near a plant or facility that has a hazardous material, there is the community right to know. You can ask them, and they need to provide whatever that potential threat to your community is. And we work with a local emergency planning committee, which we get those companies to come in and chat with us, and then we hold meetings quarterly, and these are open meetings. You just got to watch the paper or go to our website and check out when those meetings are. And we encourage people to attend and know what those hazards are in your community and how we're dealing with it.
Yeah, shoes are also important. I know whenever I was little, I was telling him we were in a tornado went around our house, had it hit it straight on. I grew up in the South. We didn't have basements. We'd be dead. It was just the wind around it that sucked the ceiling off, or the roof off, put it in tree in the backyard. But shoes, that was a big deal because there's water and there's electrical. Everything's just kind of hanging at that point.
Yeah, I do some talks with the National Weather Service, and we go to schools and some local community programs, and we discuss with groups what to have in those kind of events. And shoes is always one of those things people don't seem to think about. But normally these storms usually happen in the evening. So people run to their basements, and should the worst happen, something happen, you have to come out afterwards. There's a lot of debris on the ground, so having shoes available. Another one we were talking about is having a bicycle helmet for your kids, something like that. It goes back to protecting you as an individual first, and then after that, how do you recover from that as well?
Yeah, they found my brother under the debris from the ceiling.
Yeah, that's scary.
He was alive. He was just sound asleep. When we said he could sleep through a tornado, he
literally
really could. He did. Yeah, so there were no shoes, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a very interesting night.
Oh, I bet.
So, to look up, and 1 minute you have a ceiling, and the next minute there were things flying at you.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely being prepared. I know that was the one thing I thought about was shoes would have been really great to have because we all had cut feet, and it was a pretty scary night.
Yeah, I can imagine just... Oh, yeah, that would be terrifying, actually.
Yeah. And my husband wonders why I'm like, do not go outside and watch. I mean, seriously, dude.
Well, it's funny. You seem to be able to tell the people who have been through an event and those who haven't. Usually,
yeah.
And I'm not going to say it's that way all the time because there's a lot of chasers out there that kind of put themselves in those situations. And I personally think it's a false sense of security because you have no idea where that thing's really going when you're that close. So
yeah, they can certainly bounce or back up. They're in charge, not you.
Oh yeah, it's not the wind that hurts you; it's the stuff that's in the wind.
Absolutely. Yeah, there were cows flying, all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about making a plan.
Sure.
What would you do if you were a homeowner and you've got little kids, or just a homeowner in general? What would be your plan?
Sure. The first thing is that communications plan. I kind of go back a little bit just to catch that piece about notification and how do you get that notification. And once you do that, then you respond and follow that plan. That plan could be simply go to the basement. It could be get in the closet, pull a mattress on yourself in the tub. Whatever situation you're in, that's your plan, but follow that plan. The second part of that is the communications plan. Again, you can't count on cell phones and other mobile devices in those kinds of situations afterwards. Lines are usually full, or towers are down, those kinds of things. So have that backup system. How are you going to communicate? And it could be simply, if this happens, family, we need to all meet at this location should something happen. So you all know where to go. And sharing that plan with your families is crucial because it's one thing to have the plan, but if you don't share it with anybody, then it's not going to matter a whole lot. So, and we're so dispersed nowadays. We can stay in contact with each other with our digital devices, but sometimes we're at a church or a church function, and some of the other part of the family is at a friend's house, and other parts at a ball game. So we're all in different areas when these things happen. So there's lots of scenarios to think about that way as well. If we're in Kansas City at a ball game, and in Manhattan, and the family's dispersed, and the storm happens while you're all gone, how do you get back into that location? Make sure you have your driver's license, and everybody has an ID, those kinds of things. And, we say that because I think most people assume, well, everybody carries a wallet, everybody carries their purse. That's not true. That's not the case. So having some sort of identification on you is essential as well. And then knowing where to go to meet up with your family afterwards. Another thing we talk about is having an out-of-state contact. So I always think of Joplin when I think of this particular piece of having a communications plan. I remember seeing, and I have the photo that I use actually in a slideshow when we give these talks and briefings to civic groups and stuff. It was a picture of a destroyed home, just absolutely destroyed home. And there's a pickup truck that's obviously been banged up and messed up, but there was some recognizable things. If you were that family, I'm sure there was some recognizable things in that picture. And on the side of the truck, it was a white pickup truck, spray painted across, Grandma and I are okay. That's all it was, because they couldn't get a message out to anybody, but they knew if somebody saw that picture, that they knew that was their truck. At least they got that message out. So having a way to communicate is, just let your loved ones know. But Also, because of the confusion and the mass disruption that's going on in communication at a local level during these events, having that out-of-state contact sometimes would have more information about your local area than you do. So I was thinking about jumping again, if that family who did that were able to call somebody in Topeka or a surrounding area and say, can you tell me where the nearest shelter is? And then I can get online, look up where those shelters are in Joplin, and let them know. So, if you're lucky enough to get a call out or some kind of communication out for an out-of-state contact, that's and also I can let the rest of the family know, hey, yeah, so-and-so's okay. So having an out-of-state contact is also a key part of that, making a plan.
Absolutely. So join us again after the break. I'll be back with Dusty Nichols, and he is with the Shawnee County Emergency Management Department, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on in Harvey and how you can contribute in natural disasters, and a little bit more about being prepared.
Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
Thanks for joining us again. This is Karey Brown, broker, owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. I'm back with Dusty Nichols, and he is the director at the Shawnee County Emergency Management Department. And so Dusty and I were talking before the break about different things to be prepared, and we want to elaborate a little bit more about that. So when it comes to like commercial businesses and things like that, what should they do to be prepared?
Oh, there's lots of different ways to prepare for any business. One of the main things we discuss is the what we call COOP, is the continuity of operations planning. Most people know it as business continuity, that kind of thing. One of the main things on that is really going back to square one and identifying, again, what is the thing that makes your business run, what makes it tick. If you lost this one or two things, whatever it might be in your business, if you lost that, your business would be trashed. It would be done. So identifying that is key, and then the second part is how to protect that. How are we going to do things to mitigate, to make things less of an impact, or to rid of that threat. So protecting that one thing, whether it's a cyber type thing, whether it's a car, or what is the one thing that keeps your business running, and protecting that. So and trying to figure out how much protection you give it. So if you have a 10-cent widget that is the key to your multi-million-dollar company, how much protection do you give that 10-cent widget? A couple $1 million of your multi-million-dollar company, protect that 10-cent widget. So it goes back to that. What is the protection level that you're going to offer that? And then preparing around that. So should you have a storm or something that's going to affect your business, how do you keep that business continuous? How do you have a continuity of operation? How do you keep it running? And so it's not one of those things that's it's a one-size-fits-all. It's definitely, you have to really consider those things for your business and your customers, and what is the service you provide, what's making you that money, what's keeping your business viable, and learning how to protect that. And when we see these plans getting built, people sometimes focus too much on relocation. If I had to relocate my business, that maybe not it. It's how do you keep it functioning? One of the things I think about is Greensburg, Kansas, when the stories I heard from the Register of Deeds office there. And the Register of Deeds, if you don't, I'm sure you're
I'm aware.
I was going to say, I'm sure your audience is aware. Most people don't even know about the Register of Deeds
right.
office. So it's interesting. I'm talking to somebody who does, so that's really good. But one of the things that they did immediately following on their continuity of operation was, helping people identify their land plots and those kinds of things. So they were up and running the very next day. From what I understand, just with a cash box, a 2x6, a couple of lawn chairs, and they were ready to go. So that's continuity of operations. That's being prepared to do your job regardless of whatever's going on. On the government side, it's a little bit different because it's based on laws and regulations and what do we have to do regardless of the event. So that's the difference kind of between continuity of operations, COOP, and business continuity. The business is, of course, for profit. So finding out those things and then building your kit, making your plan, and staying informed is all part of that as well.
And I know I've had the fire department on several times with the way things are built anymore, you're going to die faster from the inhalation of the bad stuff that are everything's made from versus actually being consumed by fire. So, you need to know that you only have a matter of seconds to get out of a building. So don't try and be a hero. Just, get the people out and get out.
Yeah. And we always go back to that, at least on emergency management. If you can't help yourself, you can't help anyone else. And we relate it like when you get on an airline and the masks drop out, the oxygen mask. They always say put that mask on yourself before helping somebody else. Same concept here. Get yourself in a situation where you're safe and protected before you can help anyone else, because otherwise you're just adding to the problem.
Absolutely. Just one more body to try and remove from the scene.
Could be, unfortunately.
Yeah. So definitely pay attention to that. I never really knew that until I had them on the show at how many chemicals are actually in our clothing, our furniture, our carpet, all of that. Yeah. It goes up so fast in flames, and then it just fills your air that you're breathing with so many chemicals. Yeah. It's crazy.
And, it's still smoke. So, get as low to the ground, get out of there as fast as possible, having those escape routes planned and ready to go, and again, sharing that plan. And, I always almost forget to say this, but it's one thing to make the plan and then to share the plan. But in emergency management, we say that no plan is ever complete until you've tested the plan, because you don't know where the holes are. You don't know where where it's not going to work. So if you do have a plan, test it out, even with your family, and make a game of it if you have little kids. Do something to make sure they understand, because when it comes time for these things to actually need to happen, it almost needs to be a reflex. You don't want the first time to ever test your plan being the actual event.
Right.
So test that plan out.
So let's talk a little bit about the natural disasters like Harvey. I know everybody wants to help. We were just talking during a break that my husband and his company go down and they help, with the big grapple trucks to remove debris and things like that. They've not even been mobilized yet because, they're not to the recovery stage yet.
Right.
And debris removal. So everyone wants to jump in their car and go down and help, and you can also be a detriment. So how do you find out where all the information is and what you should be doing?
We'll just use Harvey since it's most recent, and we're still kind of dealing with it. And we got Irma, that's
coming soon.
Yeah, coming sooner. We're gonna have to deal with that. But pre-storm, of course, I think the part that people forget that when it's nice outside, like days like today, we're still planning and practicing for the worst case scenario. And that's what emergency managers do, and that's what fire department does, and that's what law enforcement and all of our partners, public works, you name it, if they're going to be involved, we try to practice this stuff on nice days and practice that plan so we know where the holes are. So when these things occur, especially in the large-scale events, this is emergency management's response. This is what we are trained to do. This is what we are certified to do. Much like law enforcement does every single day, fire department does every single day, medical response every single day, public works every single day. You see them do their jobs every day. Fortunately, we don't have these kind of events every day to see emergency management go to work. So there's already organizations and departments set up to handle this level of event. And this particular one, in my opinion, and the opinions of a few other emergency managers, has been done. When I say done, being run rather well, from on the ground there to all the states that are providing support organizations. The reason I say that is because it's being done very deliberately, using the planning and keeping people safe and secure along the way. In that, the way it works, for example, Houston's dealing with massive flooding, just an overwhelming situation. They have their mutual aid. They have their response. They're doing everything that they do every day, but they're overwhelmed. So they'll go out to mutual aid. They'll go out to the people closest by to come and help, and so they come and help. Past that, they'll put out what they call a needs assessment. They'll say this is what else we need. These are the missions that we have that we need to continue to rescue people or whatever the case may be. Hazmat, you name it, whatever situations they're dealing with. They put out to 50 states through emergency management. It's called Emergency Management Assistance Compact. It's like a state-to-state mutual aid. So they put that message out, and all 50 states reply to that saying, we have that capability to meet that need you have. So now they're not only flooded literally, but they're also getting flooded with responses from all 50 states from however many teams that are out there saying we can do that. So now they have to go through and filter and then decide which teams are going to come and help them. Because if you go rushing down there, if you flood the area that's already flooded with more people, well, people sometimes don't realize there's no restaurants. So we have to figure out how to feed people. The food and water's gone from grocery store. All these resources to support those workers have to be very deliberately planned and rationed and everything else. So people flooding that area actually causes more of a problem in some cases. Now, deliberately coming in there where Houston says, I want this team to come here at this location. They're going to stage here, and we'll give them these missions for this block to go out and do these. That's more deliberate. That's what's happening, at least from my perspective looking at this. And then the social media aspect of it, the regular media conferences that they're having, they're done really well. So the biggest concern is if you can't get in that system on that side, is how do you support it? How do you help? And you see the media down there traveling around with people who just showed up with their boats, and that's one thing. And they're doing what they can to help. I understand that, but listen to those conversations that they're having. There is no water. There's no food there. They're starving when they go down to help. So they put themselves at risk as well. Again, going back to you could be part of the problem. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're looking at how do I donate, how do I help, the first thing I usually do, because you're going to see the Red Cross pop up right away saying donate here to help, or other organizations that are out there saying please help. I like to go directly to the emergency management page for whatever area that's affected. So I went to Houston's Emergency Operations Center webpage, and this is an open site, and that's where they're putting out information. And they're putting out not just the flood information, but communication information and the maps. And they're putting all that information out, saying this is what we're doing. This is the rumor control. All that stuff is at the horse's mouth, if you will. You're getting it from those people that are working that event. And so usually, like in this particular case, I went to HoustonEmergencyManagement.org, and that was their page, and I looked at it, and there's a how to donate tab in there. So, of course, financial donations are always the best way to go in these kind of situations. But there's also places about where if you're going to drop off things, there's locations and addresses and phone calls, and so they can receive donations based on a schedule, and you're not overwhelming them because they got to sleep. they got to do stuff too, and they're recovering their own homes. They're working in the same area that they're trying to pull donations from. So a little empathy towards them and understanding how they have to work goes a long way when you're donating. So again, it's always financial seems to be always the best way. And then I remember seeing from the Katrina event, a warehouse full of just junk that people, they couldn't sell a garage sale, so they shipped it on down there. And there's a Santa Claus, a plastic Santa Claus on top of this pile of stuff. It just made no sense to me at all. But there's materials and furniture and bedding and stuff, diapers that are needed. But there's a 1-800 number to call. They want you to donate a specific way because that helps them help the people in that area. So that's what I would do.
Absolutely. So, Dusty, if someone wanted to get a hold of you to find out more, maybe do some education for their businesses, how should they get a hold of you?
Sure. We have our website at the county. It's snco.us/em. Or just go to Google and type in Shawnee County Emergency Management. You can also reach us through Facebook under Shawnee County Emergency Management. And you can message us there. My email is dustin.nichols@snco.us. We're also on Nextdoor, Twitter. So we're out there. Just look up Shawnee County Emergency Management or snco.emergency management, something like that. And it's something relative to Shawnee County, and you're going to find us. We're easy to get a hold of.
And if you're looking to buy or sell, give us a call at 785-213-5188. You can also check out our website. It is the most accurate website for all of Northeast Kansas, and the website is nekansashomes.com. We'd love to talk to you. You can also email us at preferredadvisorsteam@gmail.com. Thanks for listening to Real Estate 101.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Karey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors. Tune in again next Sunday at 11 o'clock for Real Estate 101.